Hello and welcome again to JavaScript 101. We've been dealing with some pretty big concepts in the last few lessons, and in this lesson tutorial, we'll be doing something a little bit more straightforward, but still super useful. We're going to learn about another type of variable. So far we've dealt with strings, that is text variables. We've also done numerical variables. Today I'm going to introduce a type of variable called an array. An array is sort of a very different way of thinking about variables. Essentially, it lets you have a list. And it's so useful in coding to be able to have a list that we can go and draw from. Let me demonstrate how it works, and hopefully it'll make a whole lot of sense. So I've already opened up my template here. You'll notice I've got an extra function that I've copied over from last lesson, previous lesson. I'll explain this in a bit more detail when we get up to it. For now though, we can just start with the usual my function, and I'm going to create a new variable. Hopefully this is very familiar by now. I'm going to make a variable that I'll call pets, and I'm going to put in my the pets that I like into this variable. But normally I might write in dog or something like that, and that might be my list of pets finished. But that's only one variable, one item, and I could put in different words. I could put in cat or whatever. But with an array, that is a list, an array, we can put in all of those types of pets in one variable. So if I get rid of that for now, the way we tell JavaScript or tell the computer that we're creating an array, a list, is by putting it in square brackets. They're with the curly braces that we're familiar with. So inside these square brackets now, I can put in as many items as I'd like, as many pieces of data as I'd like, separated by commas. So these are words, so I need to put them in quotation marks. I'm going to have dog, because that's one type of pet that I like. I'll put in a comma. Another type of pet that I like is cat, comma. And I'll put in a third. I also, I don't mind a good spider. So that can be my third type of pet. And so now this one variable called pets actually stores three separate pieces of information: dog, cat, and spider. End it with a semicolon. If we now want to use that information, we can refer to it by a number. It starts counting at 0, which is something that people often forget. So item number 0 is dog, item number 1 is cat, and item number 3 is spider. So on the next line, I'll do an alert so that we can see that in action. I've forgotten how to do an alert. Alert in brackets, my favorite pet, using the Australian spelling because I'm Australian. My favorite pet is, and then normally we'd put in the name of the variable, and that's exactly what we do, pets. But here's what we do extra with an array, because it doesn't know which of these items I want to refer to. So again, I use the square brackets, and I put in the number to indicate which place on the list it is. So 0 is the first one, as I said. We put a semicolon at the end. Oh, it's coming up with the red underline, and I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? The code looks fine. I forgot the plus because I want to add the pets variable to this sentence, to this string. And I think if I save that and refresh over here, it should now work. Let's see. My favorite pet is dog. That's it, because I said 0. It looked for the 0 item, the first item on the list, and I got dog. Let's try it again, and this time I'll put in 2. So remember, it's 0, 1, 2. It should come up with this last item. I'll save that. I'll refresh over here and I'll run the script. My favorite pet is spider. I really should say a, shouldn't I? To make it the sentence flow a bit better. My favorite pet is, save, refresh, run. My favorite pet is a spider. It went 0, 1, 2 and got the last item from the list. Okay, so that's how arrays work. You type in the variable name, and in the square brackets you put in the number that indicates which item from the list you want to use. Often we'll want to choose something random from the list. Let's say I just want to randomly say one of the pets that I like. So what we could do in that case is use this function that I created in the previous tutorial, and I went through how to create that in the previous tutorial, and we can use that to get a random number that will indicate either 0, 1, or 2 in this particular case. Now there is one problem, because this function that we wrote last time gets us a random number between 1 and whatever the maximum we want is. That means we'd never say 0 and we'd never get dog as an option. And also, if we said 3, because we've got 3 items, then it would skip 0. It would say 1, 2, and 3. So that's not going to work very well. I'll just show you what happens if we put in 3 there. So we're going beyond the end of the list. Refresh it and run. My favorite pet is a undefined, because it can't find any information in spot number 3. And so it says undefined. So we need to tweak this just a little bit to make it work here. We just need to change one tiny thing. I've already put a note in here. We want to make it floor, not ceiling. You might remember from the previous tutorial, I said this command, math.ceil, or ceiling, will round the number up. So 0.4 would round up to number 1. 2.9 would round up to 3. If we just change that, so instead of rounding up, it rounds down, now it should work for us, because what it will do is 0.8 would round down to 0, and so we'd get the first item, dog. And if we can still say, oh, my list has 3 things in it, so if we say 3, but instead of rounding up to 3, it will round down to 2, and so it will still be in the correct range. So now it should work. So I'll add a line of code in the middle here, where I'll say var random equals, and I'll call this function, I'll run this function, get random max, and I can see this is 1, 2, 3 items long, so I'm going to say 3, and that with a semicolon. And now here in the alert, instead of saying pets and choosing item number 3, I will say random. And so now it will be whatever this random number is what gets fed in here, and I should get lots of different answers. Save, refresh, run. Okay, there's a problem in my code because it's not running. Let me see what I've done. Oh, look at this. I misspelt random here. I left out the O. I'll save that again. I'll double check. Yep, they do match. See how easy it is. You miss one character and your code doesn't work. But luckily this was pretty short, and there's ways you can find what you've done wrong. I'll save again. I'll refresh, and hopefully my favorite pet is a dog. Okay, so it was obviously 0 was the random number, and it said dog. Let's run it again. It said dog again. Well, it's saying dog a lot. Spider that time. So this time the random number went to, it got rounded down to 2, 0, 1, 2, fed in 2, and gave me spider. Let's just run it a few more times. Spider. I seem to be getting the same answer a lot. There we go, cat. Dog, cat. Good. Okay, so I am getting the random results. I just happen to get a long run in a row. You can do all kinds of things with arrays. I've made video games where there've been a whole bunch of different types of monsters, and so I had an array of monsters and they could pop up at different times. You could have a list of questions. So let's say we want to grab someone's details. We want to get their name, their age, their favorite color, whatever. We could have a variable called details, and then inside equals, and then inside the square brackets, we can put a whole list of questions that the person has to answer to fill in those details. Now, to make that formatted a bit nicer, remember every line of code needs to end with a semicolon. So we can actually break a line of code, and JavaScript just treats it like one line of code because there's no semicolon. Even though we've pressed enter, even though we've put it on a new line, to JavaScript, to the computer, it's just like it's one line. But we can do it to help us with making it easy to read. So now I can put one question on each line. What is your first name? Question mark. I end it with a comma because that's the end of one item, just like I did for dog over here. When I press enter, what is your surname? Comma at the end, not a semicolon, just a comma. Next one, what is your favorite color? And on I could go. You can see it makes it really easy. I can read, okay, I've got this variable called details. Oh, I see from the from the square bracket that this is an array. Oh, and here's the list of items. Here's the different items that are included in my array. And it's very easy to read down. If I had 10, 20, it would just come down the list and it would look very neat. I do need to make sure, however, that when I get to the end, after this square bracket, I put my semicolon to tell the computer that's the end of one line of code. That's the end of one instruction. And then I could do something like have a, I could randomly generate which question gets asked, or I could prompt, I meant to say var name equals, and then inside this prompt box, I could just tell it details 0, and with that, let's see how that works. So I could have a variable called name, and its value is whatever the answer is in this prompt. What do I put in the prompt? What's the question? Well, I can just go up to this this list and draw it out from there, which can be a bit of a neater way of having it rather than putting it inside the prompt every time. Let's save that, refresh, run the script. My favorite pet is a cat, randomly assigned cat. What is your first name? You can see here, details 0, it's getting first name. So I'll say Chris, and it never asked me the others. In a future lesson, I'll show you how you could then work through each item on the list. That'll be in our next tutorial. But I think that's probably enough for one day. So I hope you understand and can see how useful arrays will be when you're creating bigger, more complex programs. Happy coding!